Hello, hello. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Roll for Question, where a veteran DM offers to answer any questions you might have about Dungeons and Dragons. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and answer some commonly asked questions that I see. This is a continuation of the last stream where I had quite a few good ones, and I am seeing now that I didn't prepare and that I didn't leave myself the best for this session. So hopefully there's enough question here to talk. Hopefully these are good enough questions to be worth answering. They're not going to be as good as last time, but let's get into it. The leading question that I left for myself to answer, because I hear this one semi-often. It's usually not a serious question, or it's a serious question, but it's usually not like a question that needs an answer. New players like to ask, how do you judge whether you're a good DM or not? What makes a DM good? Who's the best DM? These are interesting questions, and they're fair questions because, like, the goal of being a dungeon master is being good. I mean, that's the goal of anything, right? The goal of a dungeon master is to bring fun for the table for everyone. And that is kind of where my head is when I think about, like, who's a good DM? How do you tell if you're a good DM? Is everyone at the table having fun? If yes, then you're a good DM. How do you tell if people are having fun? If they want to keep playing. That is the number one metric. If players want to keep coming back for more. Now, like, obviously they're like that's binary, and like we can always do better. So how do you tell if your players are having fun? How do you tell if they're having more fun versus they're having less fun? Like, okay, they're coming back, so they're having fun, but I want them to have more fun. I like to measure fun in terms of player engagement. How engaged are they with the game? How much are they paying attention? How much are they contributing? How much are they participating? The more engagement you get, the likelier it is that your players are having fun. And there's no direct way to measure fun. There's no, like, funometer that you can plug into people's heads and just be like, oh, you're having 6 fun. Okay. And if I do this, now you're having 7 fun. That doesn't exist. So engagement is a lot easier to track because if you record the sessions, you can always go back and see, like, okay, this player is clearly clocked into the game, and they're clearly looking, and they are participating, and they're always, like, trying to do stuff. You know, they're in the game. They're into the game. And this player is just looking at their character sheet, and they're checking their phone, and they're not looking. They're just looking around. They look distracted. They're not engaged in the game. They're not having fun. So that is, I don't know if it's the best metric. That's the metric I use. Look for your players' engagement. Keep track of it. It's not something that you can really expect yourself to keep track of during the game. So if you are serious about, like, trying to figure out, am I a good DM? Try recording your sessions. Play it back. Measure your players in a replay. It's a lot easier to judge that stuff, especially when you're not, like, in the middle of trying to run the game, like trying to keep track of what's happening, what's about to happen. Someone just asked you a question, you need to answer it. You got to think about, like, what's the best way to answer that question. You're a little busy while you're running the game to go back and say, hey, you don't seem very engaged, player number 3. What's up? Also, saying that in the middle of a game, probably not going to work. If a player is not engaged in the middle of a game, asking them, why aren't you engaged, is likely to get them to say, oh, sorry, and then engage even less. How do you build engagement? How do you make your players have fun? Oh, that's a hard question. Hard and deep question to ask. That's the goal of game design, kind of. So like you're kind of asking, how do I be good at making game? And well, an easy answer is you've got this book that says Dungeons and Dragons on it, and there's a bunch of rules in there, and you paid a lot of money for those rules, and a lot of the people came to the table to play the game in the book, even though that game doesn't exist. They still come to the table expecting to play Dungeons and Dragons. So if you provide them the game as intended by the book, hopefully that gets you there. That's a starting point. And building on that is a lot easier than just going cold turkey. How do I make my players have fun? And then once you've implemented the game and you know some things are landing, some things are not landing, you pay attention to that. You track what your players like and what they don't like, and you modify the game according to what your players seem to be responding to. You may have to record your game to judge that kind of stuff, but that's how you improve. Okay, so back to the original question: how do you judge the best DM? And the goal of a game is for everyone to have fun. So maybe you could say the best game is the game where everyone's having the most fun. And that's not a very satisfying answer because fun is subjective. So thusly, that definition of best is subjective. And I mean, can't really make you like this person is the best DM to me, but to you there might be someone else. Okay, great. Well, we can't agree on that. So, where do we go there? Is there like an objective way to say whether someone is the best DM or not? Yes and no. What we can say is, okay, fun is subjective. Player enjoyment is subjective. But, like, how much enjoyment players get, like, how players respond to your game, that is more measurable than, say, just saying this is fun. Like, if players are, back to engagement, if players are really deeply engaged with your game, it's safe to say that they're having more fun than with players that are not engaged with their game. So if we've got two tables, table A, players there are playing the game. They're having fun. They're talking about it between sessions. They are thinking about builds. They're ready for like the next session. They're prepped. They've got their characters sorted out. They're bought into the game. And then you got table B, and they play at the table. And then when the session is over, they are not thinking about the game at all. They don't do any prep at all. They're not interested. They're like, that was a fun game. I'm not going to think about it for the next week now. You know, it's not that they're not engaged, but they're less engaged for sure than group A. Does that mean that the DM at table A is better than the DM at table B? Maybe, because it's not fair to compare the players at table A with the players at table B. Like if we swapped the DMs, would the players at table A remain engaged, and would the players at table B remain disengaged? And if so, then it's not it's hard to measure that kind of stuff. But I'm like, who's the best DM? How do you judge that? The table where the players are having the most fun at have the best DM. And if that DM moves to another table, that doesn't mean that they will be the best DM at that table. That doesn't mean that they will retain the title of best DM. If they move to another table and that table doesn't jibe with that DM's style, not the best DM anymore. So with that, it's kind of a hard question, but the best DM is the one who caters to their player the most. Is that a good answer? Not really, but that's the answer. uh, who's the best DM of all time? Weirdly, people have names that they want to put out there for this. Like, oh yeah, the best DM of all time, Matthew Mercer. And I'm not like saying he's bad or anything. Like, he's definitely a great DM. But I want to separate out the difference between a DM who DMs for an audience and the DM who DMs for just their own home table, or for just there's no audience. If you're DMing for an audience, that's a different skill set and a different there are different demands on you to perform when you have an audience versus when you are a DM. You're locked into the players and you are focused on them. Different skill sets. So I wish there was like a different title for, like, I'm a DM for a home game. I'm a home DM. I'm a DM for an audience. I'm a DM. I don't know. Audience DM. That's not a good name. I wish they were not called the same thing, because they are not. They're different skill sets that overlap. There's significant overlap, but there is something that I believe has been termed the Matt Mercer effect, where people will watch like Critical Role and they'll see Matt Mercer DM and they'll be like, wow, that's amazing. I guess that's the standard for all DMs. And then they go to a home game or they start a table and then they find that their table is not the same caliber as Matt Mercer, and it shouldn't be, because there's no audience. So like, if you did do that and you did come with the same caliber as Matt Mercer, you're performing for an audience of no one, which is like a waste of a performance. And it's not fair to yourself to judge yourself by that standard. And so I forgot where my point was. Judging the best DM of all time. It's not fair to name people who DM for an audience. And if that's your best DM of all time, that's fair. But I consider that a different category. So who's the best home DM of all time, I think, is an interesting question, and a question that probably it's probably no one you know. There's probably some table in some random suburb where it's just some DM who's just really passionate and they've put in a lot of work and they've gotten really lucky with like the perfect players, not like the perfect players of all time, but like perfect players for their table. And they're just completely in sync, completely plugged into the game. Some part luck, some part passion, some part talent. They're the best DM. No one knows their name. No one's even heard of them. Maybe their players are like, you're a really good DM. Maybe you should go professional. And that DM is like, and then they don't, because like being a home DM is different from being a professional DM. It's not a different skill set. It's a different mindset. Because when you're a home DM, you're doing it for fun. When you're a professional DM, you're doing it for money. And there are professional DMs that DM for fun as well, but like, would you DM if you weren't getting paid? If the answer is no, then different mindset. How do I be like this unnamed DM that I just invented? And I don't know, they might not be in a suburb. They might be in a city. They might be on stream, but they're like, no one is watching them. It could be. I don't know. That's not useful information. This is not a useful question to answer. Don't ask me who the best DM is. That's a really long answer to say your question is silly. All right. Enough about that. I left myself uncharitable questions. Let's ask the next one. Some folks ask, How do you deal with yo-yo healing? And if you don't know what yo-yo healing is, it's a colloquial term for something that happens in the game where you're in a combat with a party, and someone in the party gets knocked down, like they're the front line, they're the paladin, they get knocked down to 0 hit points. Someone casts healing word on that paladin. By the rules, that paladin gets like 1d4 plus 3 something hit points. They have like 5 hit points. They get back up. They keep fighting. They get knocked down again immediately because whatever they're fighting does way more than 5 damage per hit. Okay. The paladin gets healing worded again. They get back up. They keep fighting. They get knocked down again. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Healing worded. Fighting, knocked down, healing worded. That's yo-yo healing. The player being healed is being yo-yoed between life and death. It's a little jarring. It is immersion breaking for me when that happens. It's important to understand. It's completely understandable that you want to deal with it. It's important to understand why it's in the game. I don't think it's something that the designers were like, you know what? New revolution in games. Let's invent yo-yo healing. Let's put it in here. No. So D&D has had a problem in previous editions that yo-yo healing tries to fix. Let's think about that for a second. So, in D&D, in editions prior, healing was a lot more reliant on someone in the party being a healer. Somebody has to bite the bullet and be a healer, or else. So in like AD&D, you would heal 1 hit point per day when you rested. You didn't heal up to full. You would heal 1 hit point per day. And that's atrociously slow. If you have like 60 hit points and you get dropped down to like 10, it's going to take you 2 months to recover. And that's absurd. But you know what you could do is you could have someone in the party be a cleric, and the party and the cleric can just cast healing spells. Like, they can only cast so many per day, but it might take the cleric like 2 to 3 days to heal the party to full instead of two months. Dramatic difference. It's huge. So that's fine if someone wants to be a healer. That's totally fine. That works. Everybody loves it. What if nobody wants to be a healer? Somebody has to do it. If you don't do it, like this game becomes absurdly like a million times more lethal. You're playing on hard mode if you don't have a cleric. Someone needs to bite the bullet. Okay. 3rd edition had this problem too, where it's like, if you have a healer, great. You can heal through all this damage and your party can keep fighting things that would normally torch you. You don't have a healer? Oh, I guess your party member just died then. Whoops. Healers were very valuable. That's seen as a problem because I don't have any numbers or anything like this, but I suspect only like 10 to 20% of the player base wants to play a healer. It is not popular enough to support being a mandatory thing in a party. If you've got like 8 people in the party, there's chances that somebody will want to be a healer. But if you've got 4 people, there's a good chance nobody wants to do it. I say a good chance, it's like 50-50 chance. And so someone's going to get stuck playing a character they don't want to play because the game is forcing them to do that. And so 4th edition was the first edition that kind of recognized this problem, kind of. 4th edition introduced the idea of, I don't want to say roles, but it's kind of role. Like roles existed in previous editions, but 4th edition really fleshed them out. Like, here's the defender, here's the controller, here's the leader, that kind of thing. And 4th edition did 2 things. One, it took away like the dedicated healer role. If you wanted to be a healer, you couldn't just heal. You were also you were attacking, you were doing other things. You were able to take a turn in addition to healing. And then it spread out the healer role amongst several different classes. So you didn't need to have a cleric specifically. You could have like an off healer, quote unquote, And that would be good enough. Like, it wouldn't be as good as having a full healer, but you could still play the game with an off healer. And it worked, I think. If you played 4th edition, which mixed opinions on, but I don't think there was a problem of people being forced to play a character they didn't want to play because it fit party composition. I don't think that happened. 5th edition learned from that. 5th edition introduced a spell called Healing Word. And Healing Word is the spell that is kind of holding back this ancient problem of needing to have a healer in the party. You can have a healer in 5th edition. You can have a character who's like, my job is to heal, keep everyone at max hit points. You can do that. That's not a problem. But if you don't do that, all you need to have to get the baseline benefits of a healer is Healing Word, this spell. And the way that this spell works is it heals very, very little. It kind of sucks how little it heals. But it's a bonus action, so it doesn't take up your turn. You can do it. You can still have a regular turn. And the way that the death mechanics are designed, if someone's at 0 hit points, Healing Word gets them back up. So, like, that's all you really need. And then, as far as healing, other forms of healing, you can just get by with short rests and long rests. Especially if you're playing with the kind of party that likes to long rest after every combat. So you don't need a healer. Don't need it anymore. You can get by with just Healing Word. And that is... It's good that there are a lot of people playing D&D who had no idea that this was even a problem to begin with. I don't think there are people playing D&D who are like, we cannot play D&D without a cleric. I don't think that's a thing in 5e. I've never seen that happen. I'm glad I don't see that happen. If you mess with yo-yo healing, if you want to get rid of yo-yo healing, you must keep this problem in mind, or you risk reinviting that ancient problem back. Now, if you're a table, and you have someone at the table who's like, I really want to be a healer, go nuts. Get rid of yo-yo healing. Give that player do whatever you want. The most common house rule I've seen is every time you drop to 0 hit points, you gain a level of exhaustion. I don't like that. I think that's extreme, but it works. And if you've got a full healer in the party, go nuts. You know, I think the problems with gaining a level of exhaustion at 0 hit points is that exhaustion is very extreme, and it's very it's something that the party really doesn't get much choice in, much agency in. So if you've got a healer in the party, the healer has agency to say, okay, I'm going to keep you from dropping to 0 hit points so you don't get exhaustion. If you don't have a healer and people are beating up on the fighter, like, what do you want the party to do? Like, I'll cast Healing Word preventatively? That does nothing. It does like 5 hit points on average. It's not something that you can it's not something that you can hold back very well. So I think they buffed Healing Word in the newest edition, so it heals a lot more. When I say a lot more, I mean it heals 2 more on average. So it's a little better, but at the end of the day, Healing Word is kind of important. There are other options you can do for yo-yo healing if you have thought about the problem I've talked about in mind. One of them is you can just make healing not work if someone's at 0 hit points. Like you can't be healed at 0 hit points. If you get healed, you get stabilized instead. And then once you're stabilized, I should clarify, you can be healed at 0 hit points, but if you receive healing, you don't go up to 1 hit point. You stabilize first, and then if you're stabilized and then you receive healing, then you get up. So healing or being knocked out is a lot stickier, and that doesn't apply to rolling a nat 20 on a death save. That's just for like other forms of healing. You could try that. You could try. There was a mechanic that Mike Merles, I think, said offhand one time in a stream. I can't remember, a long time ago, where death saving throws never go away. You can have a lot more death failures before you die. You can have like death failures equal half of your Constitution score, but they never go away ever. So just because you've been knocked down and you get back up doesn't mean like you get off scot-free. You have a death save fail, it doesn't go away. If you do that, maybe you have a con score of 12. If you do that 5 more times, your character is toast forever. That might address the yo-yo healing, or it might make it worse. Something that I've seen other games do. You get knocked down. You get dropped to 0 points. You also gain a condition. You can call it whatever you want. You gain a condition that says the next time you drop to 0 points, you die instantly. This condition goes away on a long rest. You can do that. Make it so that, okay, you healed someone back up, but they don't want to keep fighting. They want to get out of there because they're going to die if they stick around. Hi, Andre BP. How's it going? If you I can't think of many more solutions to yo-yo healing off the top of my head, but I feel like the exhaustion one isn't bad. It's just exhaustion is extreme. If you were playing with one D&D exhaustion, I would like it a lot more. But at the same time, I would also prefer if there's a healer in the party to to be able to heal the party, to keep them from going to 0 points. How are you? I'm doing good. Doing good over here. There's probably like a dozen different homebrew yo-yo healing solutions out there on the internet that you could dig up if you were really curious, if you really want to explore. Just make sure that whatever you pick up, make sure you don't make healers mandatory again. Or if you do make healers mandatory, make sure you have a person in your table who wants to be a healer. And if no one wants to be a healer, maybe it's okay to accept yo-yo healing and find another way to like soothe the problems that are happening at the table. I assume that this question it's a 50-50 between like, it just doesn't make sense that the paladin would get knocked out and get back up and knocked down and get back up and knocked down and get back up over and over and over again. There's that, and then there's the tables that are like, I keep trying to kill my players, keep trying to kill my characters, and they keep healing, and it's very frustrating because they just won't die, and I don't feel like I'm challenging my players. And how do I challenge them? But yo-yo healing is a problem, and it's like, maybe I'm being uncharitable with that. I think it's probably more in the sense that like, I send monsters against my players and they get knocked down, but then they get back up again, and I don't feel like I'm challenging them because like they get back up again. So how do I make these monsters deadlier? It's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Be careful. Don't make yo-yo healing go away. If you're not careful, you might make the game worse. But there are, once you understand what the underlying problem that could pop up could be, then you're in a better position to start tinkering with that and start making the game yours, what you want it to be. My D&D party has no healer even with a paladin. We run on health potions mostly. But yeah, you don't need a healer in 5th edition. That's my point. Health potions are a what's the word? Health potions are good as a they're a patch on the problem. They're not bad, but like you can't unless you're like, here's 50 healing potions, go nuts. And what I've seen in third edition and prior is the DM would just give the party a wand of healing, a wand, and the wand has in third edition is a potion with 50 charges, which is exact same energy. It's like, okay, you don't need a healer. Here's 50 healing potions. Technically, that works. Technically. No complaints. A little weird, but if it works. Well, I have a next question. Next question. How do you make long resting more interesting? It's a good question. I'll be honest, it's not that common of a question, but it does pop up from time to time. What is common? I shouldn't say common. What it usually is a new player will come up and say, "Hey, long rests are boring. I made this homebrew system to make it better. What do you think?" And what is usually being proposed is a system where like you can long rest, but you have to roll a d6. And if you're long resting on a bedroll, you get a +1. And if you're long resting next to a campfire, you get a +1. And if you ate good food, you get a +2. And if it's raining, you get minus. It's like there's this table, and it's meant to make long resting more complicated, and it's meant to make it, I guess, something that the players think about more. Or there's an alternative like idea behind. My players are long resting. I think they're long resting to get back resources, so I don't want to just attack them, but I want to attack them. How do I attack them? It's like how do I make long rests something that I can interact with more as a DM without making the game fall apart because players are long resting, because if they don't, they'll just die. So for that first part, just making long resting more interesting is generally a question of like, what are you trying to accomplish? And I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but just like, what is the goal of your specific changes? Because a lot of the time, the things that are proposed, I'm just trying to think back, like when the last time I heard this, it's often built on the idea of like, well, this is what would happen in real life. This is realism. And I feel like long rests are unrealistic. And it'd be more realistic if like you needed to eat proper nutrition, and it'd be more if you have to like make sure you like ward off bugs and all, and put up a tent and like all that kind of stuff. Sure. More realism would be good, but adding any rules to any system adds complexity. And you have to understand that making the game more complex does not make it better. It makes it harder to sort of roll through. There's a way to make long rests seem more interesting in a way role-playing way. You can. That is another aspect for sure. That's not one that I've generally seen, but asked by new players. But it's absolutely certain that you can make a long rest a role-playing opportunity. I have seen. I can't remember. There was one game that was streamed that I think the streamer had a rule that every long rest you could do a flashback for your character, and if you did that, you would get inspiration. And that makes long resting more of a resource to like, what's the word? A resource to discover the characters instead of just like, we're long resting because we're out of spell slots. We're long resting to find out more about this character, and if you do, you get inspiration. So like, the party is motivated to actually do it. Maybe think about it beforehand, because you don't want to just. I mean, you could improv a flashback, but maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to plan out your character a little more, your character's backstory. That is true. But just making long rests more interesting from as a perspective of like adding mechanics to it is a game designer challenge that I think new players often bite off more than they can chew. If your goal is just to make it more realistic, really ask yourself, does that make the game more fun? And if it does, okay, go for it. But if you're asking the community, is this a good idea? Generally, the answer is you probably want to bake that idea a little more. You want to cut off the parts that are adding complexity, but they're not really adding much choice for players. Because like, if you implement a system that says, okay, you need to put up a tent, you need to do a campfire, you need to eat the right food. Why wouldn't can we just assume that happens? Is there any reason for the players not to do that? Like, is there any choice? And if their answer is no, can we just assume that happens and just move on? Yeah. I saw players use their characters to make stories during the long rest and flesh out their character. Talk about their life stories, I mean. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I think that is a good use of a long rest too, I think. I do like that. I'm gonna say mechanic, even though it's just role playing. Long rests are an asset to be used for learning more about the characters. Why not? Let's see. I forgot the other aspect of long resting that I was. Challenge. Yeah, if you're a player and you want to make long rests more interesting by like ambushing the players or like putting them in danger. I don't think there's any like magical like, yeah, you can do that. Just make sure you ambush them like this. I don't think there's any sort of advice to give on that front. If you just want to ambush your players during a long rest, like you can ask your players, here's a map, draw out the camp. How are you fortifying it? You can make that fun for sure. You can be like, here's a bunch of rocks and stuff. Place them somewhere. Make a map. That is not necessarily going to be a good idea if your goal is to challenge the players. Because if you attack players during long resting with the goal of like pushing them to the brink of, I don't know, the brink of failure, what's likely to happen is that in the future your players are going to long rest even more to compensate for that. So like if your players are going through a dungeon and they are long resting earlier than you'd like them to, it's like you expected them to go 6 encounters before they long rested, but after the second encounter they were like, we have to long rest. And you're like, okay, well obviously the dungeon denizens would come out and attack and ambush them and do all that. That is something that you do that, and assuming the party survives, what they'll say is, okay, cool. So now we need to think about like the next time we long rest, we need to be ready to receive any ambush that comes for us. We need to long rest even earlier to prepare for that. It's like you may be training your players to long rest more and receive and be less receptive to challenge, whereas that may not be your goal. And if your goal is to like challenge the players, that might be a thing where you talk to your players out of the game. You ask them, what are you looking for in terms of challenge? Like, I thought that you guys could go 6 encounters before needing a long rest. Why are you guys long resting after 2? You know, have that conversation. Maybe you'll find that they are just reacting in this way because they thought that you were planning something. Maybe they thought they were trying to play to what they thought you were thinking. They were like, well, we long rested after the second encounter because we thought that that's what you wanted, because that's just like, there's a misunderstanding that happened there. I don't know. All that to say, if you're trying to make long rests part of your challenge, talk to your players. Or bake it into your challenge. Like, don't. It's okay to be like, all right, I'm going to ambush the party on day 3, and I'm going to plan my encounters appropriately so that they get the expected amount of. I'm giving them an expected amount of challenge. It's okay to be like that. It's less okay to be like, my players are they're too timid. They need to be punished. They're not getting enough challenge, so I need to challenge them at the campsite. Just be careful with that. Oh boy. Okay. Next question. This one's really common. It's also not a very hard question to answer. Do I need a map? Do I need a battle map? Do I need to draw something before I start DMing? The short answer is no. You don't. It's a perfectly acceptable way to play this game, 100% theater of the mind. And that's just entirely like your description. That is entirely what you say goes. You can do that in combat. It's something that some players have a preference towards. So some players will say, I don't like DMs that do that. Some players will say, I like DMs that do that. So if you're a new DM, you may find that actually bringing a map or a battle map makes your game worse. Or you may find that bringing a battle map or a map makes your game better. When you're a new DM, don't think about what the players want. Think about what you want. Do you want there to be a battle map? If so, then you need a battle map. Go get one. Do you care? Do you not care? Then don't bring one. Just DM. Just go. Just get started. Don't worry about, have I prepared enough? Do I have X? Do I have Y? Do I have Z? You don't need it, especially if you're a new DM. Just get out there and DM. But if you want it, absolutely go get it. If it makes you more confident. That's the key thing, I would say. Get those things if they'd make you more confident. But you don't need them. I don't need them. I don't need. If you're worried about like, I want to DM. I don't have the patience to draw a battle map, and I can't just grab one off the internet for some reason. I'm scared that I can't run Theater of the Mind though. Like, I don't have the headspace for it. You can always take notes. You can still use miniatures. You can still use like pennies or whatever to track locations and stuff, to keep track of things. You can use note cards as a sort of substitute. Some games I've seen will run non-D&D games. What they do is in a battle, you write down various locations in the battle on a note card. You slap the note cards down on the table, and then you put minis of everyone on that note card, and you say, okay, you're in the center of the room. Okay, you're over here by the altar. You are over here by the exit, and then it's a move action to move from one location to an adjacent note card, and then we just theater the mind it from there. You have all that's enough of an aid that lets DMs run a theater of the mind game without having to like keep everything mentally straightened out. And if you do run theater of the mind, it's okay to be fuzzy with your numbers. Don't try and track every foot. If you want to track every foot, you do need a battle map. I think that covers that question. It's not a complicated question, I assume it's a question about confidence rather than a question about like, do I need a map? Because some adventures, you absolutely need a map to run them. That's just the best way to spatially make people aware of what stuff is where. Other adventures, you do not need a map at all. Like the adventure doesn't expect you to have a map, so why would you need a map? And if you're making something from scratch, it's up to you. Like, do you design something with the idea that it's with a map, or do you design it theater of the mind? You can do either. Yeah. One more question. I think this might be a short stream because this is not a difficult question either. Does the anxiety you feel as a DM ever go away? That's a great question. Short answer: no. It doesn't. You're always going to have a little bit of anxiety every time, but don't lose hope. So for me, whenever I start a new campaign, I've been doing this for decades. Whenever I start a new campaign, I get anxious. I get a big anxiety, and what I've come to realize is that's my personal desire to make sure that I am on top of everything, that I'm 100% as prepped as possible for the game to be good. So I don't take that as like I'm anxious because I might fail. I take that as I'm anxious because I want to succeed. And that doesn't make it easier at all. I'm still anxious. I still want to like run away. I still want to be like, guys, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I have to leave now. Bye. Thanks for the pizza. Bye. No, I'm still anxious. But after the first session, it does get easier. The anxiety is still there. It never goes away, but it definitely gets numb. After the second session, you're like, okay, we're on some tracks, so I kind of have an idea where we're going. I didn't need to prep nearly as much. Let's go. Second session, less anxious. Third session, even less anxious. We've had 2 sessions. People are having fun. There's someone brought pizza. It's good pizza. Well, let's start. We're starting on time. Happy. Keep going. Keep going. The anxiety gets number and number and number. And if you keep running a game, eventually you forget that you're anxious. There's still just like a little like pit in the bottom of your stomach to be like, oh God, I have to run this game. I hope people are having fun. Oh no, did I mess up last game? Yeah, you may have messed up last game. It's okay. People are still having fun. Keep going. People might not even realize you messed up. If you watch the replay, you might not even realize you messed up. You might forget until like you remind yourself like, oh yeah, I didn't plan that in my notes. That wasn't supposed to happen at all. Yeah. And then after I finish a campaign and I start a new one, anxiety comes right back. Back to full anxiety mode. Ooh, never goes away. Yeah. Good stuff. But don't let it stop you from running a game. It's there to help you, believe it or not. It's there to encourage you to be your best. It's not there to make you want to run away. Like it makes me want to run away. It makes me like want to curl up and be like, game canceled. I'm sick or something. I don't know. Here's an excuse. I can't be here. I have to go in a closet. But we don't do that because once we get started, the anxiety becomes numb. People have fun. And then we go, why was I ever anxious? This is great. I have no reason to be anxious. And then you run a new game and you're like, but I'm anxious again. Best of luck. Best of luck to you if you have DM anxiety. Know that you're not alone. Most, if not all of us, get that anxiety running a game. It's perfectly normal, perfectly natural, perfectly healthy. It's not a sign that you're weird. It's not a sign that you're doomed. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that you're anxious. It means you want the game to be as the best. And you should embrace that desire. You know? Harness that anxiety. Is that a thing? Is that advice? That doesn't sound like good advice. Harness your anxiety and use it to make your game better. If you could do that, like, man, that'd be a superpower, huh? Well, I don't know. Maybe there's some folks out there who don't get anxiety. Y'all are weird. And lucky. Y'all are weird and lucky. Well, that's all I have to say. And I'm out of questions. So what I'm going to be doing for the next Roll for Question is I'm going to be doing more brews. More home brews. If you've got a question, if you have something you want to ask, something you want to ask me, maybe it's a question that you don't have a question, but you just want to hear me blather on, or you think it's a question that might be helpful to others. Ask it here. I'll be happy to answer it. You can ask it in the chat. You can ask it in the comments. Either one works. Alrighty. That is it for me. I have a lot of videos to do editing on from Steam Next Fest. I'm going to be distracted for quite a while this week. I will be doing streaming of Shape Hero Factory. I do know that there's an update. I'm excited to learn what changes were made. And then I'll be streaming more Mechabellum. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. Anyway, that's it for me. I'm going to bounce. I have videos to edit. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this. Let me know how your games are going. Hope y'all having fun out there. Take care, y'all. Alrighty.